In this video is how to prepare this tail cone nozzle, whatever you want to call it. Again, I commented that I had some difficulty doing this on my Crossfires when I first built them. I was pretty new at it at that point in time, so I've learned a lot, but I also now know exactly what we need to do to make sure that we do this right. Yeah, it'll look nice on the end. And putting it at the end versus mounting it like the BMS rocket, it was maybe about 2 millimeters of difference, so it's just not really worth making it different. So just go ahead and do this. This comes, of course, connected to the nose cone, so you got to cut the nose cone off. Then there's like a little piece of cone on this that you got to cut off. So you got to cut the pieces apart. So eventually you end up with the nose cone and the end nozzle. This is one of the little pieces that you get cut off. You just throw this away. I just have it laying here. But a couple of things that we need to do to make sure that we do this without any problems. This inside ring here, you have to make sure to remove as much of the material as you can. You don't want any of it coming in. And the coming in effect was because you had to slice off that little piece of plastic on the end. I did it pretty well. Maybe I could do maybe a little bit more in these spaces. And the reason is that when this goes into the body tube, it's going to rest against a centering ring and a glue fillet. So if this has got some plastic coming in, it's going to get stuck on the glue fillet. Now, this is not a problem. You just take this and cut some more off. Or if you end up with some other problems, you can actually slice off maybe like 1/8 inch. I was thinking about that. I could slice off 1/8 of an inch. And this way I can move the centering ring back a little bit more, but it's for some better strength. But again, let's stick with the build the way it is. You can see I play around with the designs a little bit. And I do that because I like trying to make things as reliable as possible. Okay, so again, that's one thing. Remove the inside plastic on here to make sure that this slides in. When it hits the centering ring, it doesn't get blocked by the glue fillets. The second thing is this little tab that you have to cut out. And I don't know how well that can show up. This little tab here is for the engine hook. It's going to be bent out and snap onto the engine. So you have to be able to pull it out. There's you got to make sure that this is actually cut all the way down to the edge here. If you leave it right here, you're not going to be able to bend the engine hook back. So you have to take out this material all the way to this edge. And that's very, very important to take this out to this edge. Once you do this, now you can see that you've got a little slot there so the engine hook can slide backwards, or shall I say slide to the side as you put the engine in the back. So go ahead and first of all, trim off all the excess plastic in here to make sure that it's going to be an even fit with the glue fillets. And also, when you cut the tab out, make sure that you cut this all the way down to this edge here, right to the lip that goes onto the body tube. So what I'm going to do when I do all this assembly, I'm going to paint the rocket and the nose cone separately and then glue it on. Now, this led me to a little problem that I had when I did my Crossfires. That is, when I put the engine tube in, it was very slightly misaligned. So when I put the nozzle on, it crushed the end of the engine tube, and I couldn't get the engines in. So it's like, oh my gosh, it must have been off by maybe 1 millimeter, not much. So what we're going to do is that they do have measurements, but we're going to determine the actual fit by dry fitting it, and then we're just going to mark it, because that way we at least know it's in the right place. So if we take a look at the engine tube is going to be in here, and the problem I had is that my engine tube was slightly to the side of the nozzle. So you can see, hopefully this is somewhat exaggerated, you can see that the engine tube here being to the side, if you try to insert the engine, it's not going to go in. And this is the problem that I had on my Crossfire. So the thing is, once you glue this in, you can't move it. So that's the problem. If this gets glued in, it's just off by a tad. You can't glue this on because this is now at a slight angle. I believe the way this works best is if you take the engine tube and you slide it through the center of the nozzle just a little bit. This way, when you put this into the rocket, we can actually slide the engine nozzle onto it and make sure that it is properly aligned. We're not going to glue it in right away, but we'll just slide this in to help keep the engine tube centered in the engine nozzle. So what I'm going to do in the next video is I'm going to show you how I'm going to dry fit this. Once we get everything put together in the way that we want it to work, then I'm going to mark everything and start gluing it all together. So again, this is, I just want to be careful that we do this, because this step, again, if you're not careful, like I didn't know on my first build of the Crossfires, I had this problem where I almost had to just throw the rocket away. So rather than having this misalignment here, where if you're just behind that lip by just maybe 1 millimeter, the engine tube might slide off to the side. So make sure that this is upward at least 1 or 2 millimeters, then everything will fit. Okay, that's it for this video.